Welcome to a new episode of Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. As we always say, this is the podcast that will make you a smarter investor. To that end, be sure to hit us with those 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Music, likes on YouTube, and continue to subscribe. We really appreciate that love. Now let's get to our really, I would say, an awesome feature interview here. Danny Meyer, Union Square Hospitality Group founder and Shake Shack founder. Thanks for making time for us. I mean, you're a busy dude.
Anytime, Brian.
Yeah, no, oh God, you're one of the folks that gave me my first interviews way back when. Coming into this, I wrote on a piece of paper, I'm like, who is on my Mount Rushmore in the restaurant industry? It's Danny Meyer, it's Ron Shake, Panera Bread founder, and it's Colonel Sanders. It just is what it is. But how do you guys create these brands? Like, what's your secret sauce? No pun intended.
I don't know that I belong on that particular wall with Colonel Sanders and Ron Shake. Those are two pretty majestic characters.
Oh, you're pretty majestic
in our industry. What I've always done is listen to my gut, literally and figuratively. I have been loving to eat and drink my entire life. I remember meals from when I was a kid, my years, my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and I think innovation happens not because any of us created anything new, but that we go into our taste memory bank, the file cabinet of taste memories, and connect the dots differently at the right time. It's almost like my version of writing music, which is there's only 8 notes in the octave, plus some minors and sharps, but there's an unlimited number of songs that can be written, and I think restaurants are the same way. There's not really anything new under the sun, but if you connect the dots in a fresh way, you can make a fresh feeling restaurant.
So where's your gut, where's your stomach taking you now? What are some of the biggest trends you're leaning into at Union Square?
I've never really been a trend kind of person. In fact, I never really know when the next idea is going to occur to me. I'll tell you something interesting. Union Square Cafe, which is going to be 40 years old in 2025.
Wow.
It's kind of amazing.
Wow.
I was 27 when I opened it. Was obviously my first restaurant, but it was also a restaurant based strictly on an idea that I had to create a restaurant that if only it existed would be my favorite restaurant in the world. And then once I had the idea, I just needed to find the right space and then the right chef for it. And then the second restaurant I opened, Gramercy Tavern, which was 10 years later, was a chef I really wanted to work with named Tom Colicchio. And then I had to come up with the right idea and the right place. And I would say that almost every single restaurant since that point has been finding the place first and looking at the place as if it was a frame asking for the right piece of art to go in. That's how Shake Shack was born. There's a park. What else would you put in the park?
Hot dog cart, Madison Square Park. I mean, Shake Shack was one of the first companies that I ever followed as a young, then consumer reporter. The growth in that chain has been, holy cow.
It's been great.
Now.
It's been great, but like almost everything else I've done, it was slow coming. We didn't open a second Shake Shack for 5 years because it was never the plan to have Shake Shack become a chain. It was, let's do something great for Madison Square Park. But I was going to say, this is how my innovation happens. So the Museum of Modern Art approached us 20 years ago and said, we'd like you to open a restaurant at the Museum of Modern Art. And so, no pun intended, but they gave us a frame, and I said, what should we do that works for the Museum of Modern Art? And obviously, that became the Modern. And that'll be 20 years old next year, so we're excited about that. The Mets came to us in 2008, and they said, we're building a new ballpark. We want to give you this real estate out in center field where nobody goes, and see if you can turn it into a destination for baseball goers. They gave us the frame. Yeah. They said, by the way, you can do any 4 things you want as long as one of them is Shake Shack and one of them is Blue Smoke.
Can you mold a better Mets player next? I mean, come on.
That wasn't part of our assignment, but I'm just trying to answer your question that if you give us a really cool frame, like the 60th floor of 28 Liberty Street, we turn that into Manhattan. That's what belongs there. It's almost like the frame tells us what the art wants to be.
Are you working on a rotating restaurant? What is that? I wanted to make sure I had that right.
A revolving restaurant.
Revolving.
Yeah, we're going to be opening in early 2025. The view at the top of the Marriott Marquis, which was born the same year Union Square Cafe was born, 1985. And the view was a classic, one of the last classic revolving restaurants.
It actually revolves.
It's 2 floors. One is a bar and one is a restaurant. You saw these throughout the country, in the 1970s, maybe into the early 80s, but it's a dying breed. And this has been closed now for many, many years, since before COVID. And once again, the Marriott approached us and they said, can you turn that into a destination? And we said, yeah, let's give it a shot. So we're gonna be the only revolving restaurant in New York. Now, before you get worried about needing to bring an air sickness bag with you, this entire floor revolves once per hour. So it's the only challenge, which we haven't had any experience with, is if you have to get up and go to the restroom in the middle of your meal, we're gonna have to help you figure out where your table was.
Yeah.
Because it won't be there anymore.
Well, we got to talk to the NASDAQ folks. I mean, this is an amazing team here. We got to become the first revolving podcast. The next time you come back, this floor should move.
Well, we're going to be your neighbor at NASDAQ, so we're going to expect to throw some parties for you there.
You always strike me. Look, you're a visionary in this space. Is it hard to? Does the pace of innovation frustrate you? You just have this vision, you want to get it done. I mean, how do you stay patient as these things unfold?
Oh, I think the pace of innovation is what energizes us. This is a business that it's always going to be here, but it's always going to be different. I don't know of an innovation in human future that's going to make it unnecessary to eat probably 3 times a day, right? So it's up to us to figure out, how are people going to want it? Where are they going to want it? What kind of experience are they going to want? And the really cool thing about innovation these days, as far as I'm concerned, is that on one hand, through technology, we have learned that convenience can be everything. You can push a button on your little handheld device and a 3-ton vehicle or maybe a 40-pound electric bicycle will automatically come bring you food.
We take it for granted, but it is mind-blowing.
So that's 100% convenience, and I would say almost no experience. On the other hand, we have restaurants, and I'll throw out 2 that I've already mentioned. I think Gramercy Tavern or The Modern or Manhattan, restaurants of ours here in New York, 100% experience, 0 convenience. There's no convenience in going to 28 Liberty Street and taking an elevator to the 60th floor. We don't have outdoor dining. We don't have curbside delivery at Manhattan. So there's a restaurant that's 100% about experience. And I think that innovation is going to continue to be around how can we're not going to ever get Americans to stop loving convenience, but how can we inject more experience into the convenience? And I think the experience people want is hospitality. And they've always wanted to feel, in my opinion, when they go to a restaurant, that we restaurateurs have blurred the line between going out and coming home. How can we create an experience for you? So when you come to any of our places, whether it's Shake Shack or Daily Provisions, quick serve, or whether it's your anniversary, Union Square Cafe, wherever you're going, how can we create an experience where you're not quite sure, did I just go out or did I come home?
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool trick if we can pull that up. And I think that's where innovation is going to continue to live.
You had a pioneering book, of course, Setting the Table. And within that book was a focus on what you came up with in Enlightened Hospitality. For me, I always thought, just deliver amazing customer service. That was my takeaway from the book, amongst many. But is it hard what does the future of hospitality look like if there's also this rush to get things quicker, to get in fast, and in some cases you don't even interact with a store worker or a restaurant worker?
I think the future of hospitality is the same as the past of hospitality, which is, first of all, understand that hospitality and service are 2 completely different things. Hospitality is the way we made you feel while we were delivering the service. Mm-hmm. So if you come to one of our restaurants and we seat you on time for your 8 o'clock table, and you ordered the salmon medium rare and we deliver it medium rare, and we don't say who got the salmon, right? Those are all elements of service. We better get that right. Service is table stakes. It's the technical delivery of the product. Did we do what you expected us to do? Whereas hospitality is customizing that service experience so that you know that we did it just for you. Hospitality only exists if you believe we are your agent, not your gatekeeper. In too many service experiences, it feels like you're dealing with a gatekeeper, somebody who's preventing you from getting the thing you want. Hospitality is actually helping you get the thing you want. There's really not too much in between. So the number of customized things we can do, thoughtful things we can do, memorable things we can do, over and beyond what you expected, that's where hospitality lives, and that's what human beings are always going to want. They've always wanted it. We always say hospitality is a lot like a hug. It's a reciprocal exchange of a good feeling. The only way to get a hug is to give one. And that's really what we really hope to do. And I believe that technology is actually capable of helping us to advance high touch, and that's how we use it.
Hang with us, Danny. We're going to go off for a quick break. We'll be right back on Opening Bid. All right, welcome back to Opening Bid. We're talking to one of the folks on my Mount Rushmore of restaurateurs. That is Danny Meyer. Really enjoying this conversation. You were talking about technology and hospitality. Not to name drop, it's just what it is. I recently connected with Brian Niccol, his new CEO of Starbucks. And I think Brian is about to make some changes to the menu and pull back some of the clutter and get things off the menu that didn't make sense. Have some of these restaurants gone too far on customization? And then how hard is it to get out of that and then say to the consumer, we're going to just offer you these 15 amazing things, take it or leave it?
Well, Brian absolutely knows what he's doing. He's got a tall order, no pun intended, at Starbucks to try to figure this out, but I can't think of anyone more well capable of doing that. Look, I think that you're right. I think hospitality only exists if the person on the receiving end believes you're on their side, right? So in the name of hospitality, good restaurants figure out how to find the yes. And Starbucks certainly figured out for years how to say the yes. You want your latte how? And I can't even go through all the permutations, there are so many. And Starbucks figured out the yes. But you can take that too far. And if any strength that goes too far can become a weakness. And if you take it too far for Brian when he comes in with his 18 alterations of his latte.
Well, to be clear, this is 3. 2 espresso shots and a cold brew. I mean, that's
all right,
it.
good. You're easy. But if we take Brian and put him on steroids times thousands of customers,
that'd be scary. Yes.
That doesn't work to the benefit of the average customer, and the average customer may have a declining good experience because of all the hospitality we're giving, saying yes. So one way I try to teach our teams is that the word policy is antithetical to hospitality. You can easily hide behind the word policy. I'm sorry, but our policy is we don't do that. That's dangerous. But on the other hand, I think it's important, and I'm sure Brian will figure this out, to have guidelines. I guarantee you that Starbucks is going to find a way to say yes, but they're not going to promote all those alternatives the way they once did, because I think all those alternatives gum up the works for the average person who just wants a tall coffee.
Have you had to say no to ideas at a Shake Shack in the spirit of keeping things simple and driving that great hospitality?
Absolutely, and it frustrates me because I want to do everything for everybody. But there was a time when Shake Shack had many, many more kinds of milkshakes than we now have. There was a time when Shake Shack actually had a flavor, a frozen custard flavor of the day.
Oh, I didn't know of the day.
Yes, and then when we grew and we couldn't do that for everybody because what did we do with all the leftover that we hadn't sold the night before? Then we had a frozen custard flavor of the week.
That wasn't Randy Garudi's idea.
Then it was a frozen custard flavor of the month.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
And so there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of opportunities, I think, for restaurants to say, what's in the greatest good of the business for the greatest number of people? But I do think that one thing Randy Garudi always said, which I love, is can we make it so that the bigger we get, the smaller we act? And there's magic in trying to figure that out.
I remember when Shake Shack went public, I set up in front of the New York Stock Exchange, you gave out food. I'm like, that's cool. I wish more companies that did that. But I remember reading the prospectus. I mean, there was a potential for hundreds of Shake Shacks. Like now that you're a couple years in, what's the growth potential of a Shake Shack?
Well, believe it or not, we're still figuring it out. When Shake Shack went public in 2015.
Wow, it's 2015.
Isn't that
It feels like
crazy?
yesterday. I still remember. There are still pictures of you in our Associated Press system on the floor at Exchange. I mean, they live on forever.
My hair was slightly darker 10 years
you
ago.
look like the same guy.
But, at that point, we laid down a marker and we said there will be 450 domestic company-owned Shake Shacks. And we're approaching that number right now. And so we were right about that. We didn't say by when, and we didn't say anything about what the future beyond that may hold. But I think that's something we're figuring out right now.
Can it still be a community gathering place?
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I think that burger shacks, as we know it in this country, grew up around the automobile. And what people did when they got their driver's license, including me growing up in St. Louis, was to go to the local burger shack or the local frozen custard stand, which I did in St. Louis as well. And it was really about being with your friends. The burger was almost beside the point. And so when Shake Shack was born 20 years ago in Madison Square Park, we don't have a driving culture in New York City, but we said whoever wrote the rule that the park couldn't be a substitute for a parking lot. And wouldn't that be a great place to gather with people? I don't hope that the burger's beside the point. I hope the burger is one of the points, but I do believe that the memories that get made when families bring their kids in, or people have a date with a glass of wine or a ice cold Shackmeister ale at a Shake Shack, or they go after a Little League baseball game, those are memories that last a lifetime. And I hope that that never changes.
I wanted to ask you on, you've talked a lot in the past about tipping. I go to a great local coffee shop by me in Lindenhurst. It's amazing customer service, and I always tip them. I always feel I get the prompt on the checkout, and I just leave some money. Should I still be doing that? I don't want to feel like a jerk. Is that a need? If I go in there they made my coffee and they put a straw in it, they're just great customer service. Do I need to tip them?
I don't think you I don't think you ever need to tip anywhere, whether it's a 3-star Michelin restaurant or Shake Shack. I think you should tip when you feel that you want to say thank you. The word gratuity comes from the word gratitude. And if you genuinely feel grateful for anything at any level, I think tipping is a wonderful thing to do. If you feel that someone did something that made you not want to say thank you, I don't think you have to leave a tip in any restaurant or any taxi cab or any, wherever tips are left.
Sure.
So I really think that it's a hard thing, though. I understand, because I'm a consumer as much as I am a food provider. And, a lot of times I don't necessarily feel, as wherever I am and they flip around the screen and it gives me a choice of what I can do right now, I don't always feel like saying thank you to that person, because I don't necessarily think that person did anything thankworthy. And on the other hand, I'm somebody who goes, yeah, but you know what? They could use it, and so why not?
Are tips back at your restaurants? Are they back in?
Tips have been back in our restaurants since the pandemic.
Gotcha.
And we really needed to do that because it was the only way to attract enough workers back to our restaurants. What we did do when we reinstated tips at all of our restaurants was to actually innovate something that you don't see in most restaurants, which is that on any given shift, lunch or dinner, we pay a percentage of our revenue to the kitchen team. Unfortunately, kitchen teams are not eligible by law to share in the tip pool, which if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know that
I used to clean dishes.
so the guy cleaning the dishes is working at least as hard as the guy who delivered that dish to the table.
Absolutely.
And I never thought it was fair. The reason we eliminated tips in the first place was it didn't seem fair that you're paying the offense, but the defense has to go hungry.
Sure.
So now we have a system where the people in the dining room can get tips, and even on a busy night, the kitchen, anyone in the kitchen has an incentive to also work hard because they're going to get rewarded.
In the last couple minutes on the podcast, we always ask for interesting takes from our guests. And just playing off the labor component, we recently had one of the co-founders of Sweetgreen on, and they're rolling out automation. You walk in, you get your salad, it's fascinating. Is that a look into the future? Like, is that something we could see at a Shake Shack? Do you want to be in the robot business?
Personally, I don't. I think that, look, I love those guys. As a matter of fact, Nick Jamais.
Nick was on.
Yeah, so
Correct.
Nick worked for us as a teenager at Union Square Cafe on the front door. He's a great guy, and I really respect what those guys are doing.
Thoughtful group.
I think it makes sense in the world of mixing salads. You can imagine that's an assembly line kind of thing. I think with Shake Shack, we definitely use automation. We have kiosks for ordering. But I think when it comes to making the product, there's something about the human touch, smashing that burger, seasoning the burger, flipping the burger, knowing exactly when it's time to come off, where not any two burgers at Shake Shack taste exactly the same.
Yeah.
And Ray Kroc wouldn't like that because he wanted,
I didn't put Ray on my Mount Rushmore. I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it.
But I love the fact that we can hit higher highs because of the human touch, and I really hope to keep that.
Lastly, about a minute and a half left. I wanted to give your daughter, Haley, a shout out, because I follow her on Instagram, and I have for a while. She's following your footsteps. She's in the ice cream business now.
Well, she's actually ahead of my footsteps right
Ahead of your
now.
footsteps.
You'll have to save a spot for her on Mount Rushmore. Hallie's Cafe Pana
Hallie.
is extraordinary. You can order it on Goldbelly, which is one of our investments.
I love Goldbelly.
Yep.
We'll take that offline. I'm a big fan of that site. I'm sorry, go ahead. I just totally dig that.
We don't have to take that off.
No, I did Goldbelly. I mean, that is a good site.
Goldbelly
The
is a
ability to get
fantastic site.
pies from New Orleans delivered to my house.
Yes, so I'll just take a second here. Goldbelly is a fantastic illustration of finding the 50-yard line between convenience and experience. So unlike a typical aggregator food delivery company, right, which is I'm too lazy to walk 5 blocks to go get that pizza or whatever. Goldbelly is delivering experiences to your front door that you otherwise could not have in your city. So your favorite cake or pizza or barbecue or sandwich or pie or cookie
It's great.
or whatever from wherever you grew up or whatever, wherever you went to college, that actually brings back taste memories and emotional warmth. You can have that on your doorstep tomorrow.
Well, it's always a treat to get some time with you. I know you're a busy guy. Danny Meyer, Union Square Hospitality Group founder and Shake Shack founder. Good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brian.
I appreciate it. All right, that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid. Of course, hit us with that reviews all over the place. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the love. And we'll talk to you soon.